I got into this project without even knowing it. I sat down at my sketch journal one day and started drawing this idea for these little cubicle cardstock hollow boxes that would have something either poetic or enigmatic inside the box. The box would be sealed up, and then they would be left not really hidden, but not really totally out in the open. They would be placed in locations around my neighborhood for walkers to find as they're walking the sidewalks of this old community. As I was drawing these ideas out in my sketch journal, I also sat down at a typewriter and typed out some thoughts about this project and what it might lead to. And it really is helpful to be able to put your words down on paper, get those thoughts down concrete-like, and then you can reread them and muse over them and see where you think the project might go. So this project that I'm calling the CubeSat project, because they're cubicle shaped and I'm hoping they circulate around the neighborhood like a satellite would circulate around the Earth, was something to do with my relationship to the neighborhood, which has changed over the years. My dad moved our family into this neighborhood when I was 5 years old, and our house was the model home for the subdivision. So we moved back into this neighborhood, my wife and I, after we got married, and we're a few blocks away from where I grew up. But I work across town in the neighboring community of Rio Rancho. I've worked there for almost 30 years, so I was always leaving the neighborhood early in the morning to go to work, getting back late at night. But now that I'm essentially retired, I think that my relationship to the neighborhood has changed. I've started to do more walking in the neighborhood, and I'm starting to feel more like one of the dog walkers or one of the locals that are hanging out more often here, and I want to ground myself more in this neighborhood that I've been in for 30 years, but don't feel grounded as much, if that makes any sense. So I got these little cubesats, and I'm going to put little messages in them and leave them around for people can hopefully find them, and we'll see what happens. Roadrunner. So I had this idea that part of the aesthetic of this project would be that I'd be making these little cardstock cubes out of discarded cartons and containers and advertisement flyers or other printed material that comes to my doorstep, either in the form of objects that I buy at the store or just advertisements that come in the mail. And so here I found this cardstock sheet that was from a picture frame that we had recently purchased, and it had these little pictures on the front of the sheet, and I figured each one of these pictures I could make 3 of the 6 sides of a cube I could cut out in an L-shaped from these 2 little pictures, and I would just include tabs on each edge so they can be folded, scored with a razor knife first, then folded, and then glued together into a cube. For this first experiment, I decided the message that I wanted to put into the box would be typed embossed style onto aluminum foil. So I set my Olivetti Studio 44 to the stencil mode, and I rolled in a sheet of backing paper with a small scrap of aluminum foil and typed my message embossed into the aluminum foil. To assemble the cube, each half of the cube, which is composed of 3 sides, those are folded together in the crook of the L, and that joint is glued and clamped together on each half. When those halves are dried, then the 2 halves can be joined at one common tab, clamped together to dry. And on this one, I also decided to staple that tab after the glue had set to speed up the process. And once that is finished, then the 2 halves can be folded in together to form the sealed cube. Well, I'm going to be walking around the neighborhood today looking for a special place to put this little guy so that it won't get blown away, but people will still be able to find it. It sounds like an impossible task, but I'm up to the challenge. Okay, I've decided to put it here. I think it'll be less prone to blow out with the wind, and we'll see what happens. And so I had to come up with a name for this project. When I drew it in my sketchbook initially, I didn't really have a name for it, but I just wrote, I had to create a folder for these video clips in my editing software, so I just named it the CubeSat project. They're cubes and they're satellites in the sense that they're going to circulate around my little small world here in the neighborhood, perhaps. We'll see. I will be building more of these and we'll see what happens with them. And I'll keep you guys updated if there's any new progress in this project. But for now, it's kind of an open-ended thing. I've kind of put a message in a bottle, figuratively speaking, and we're just waiting for a reply.